Here at the Focal Point today, we are joined with Faride Shroff, the founder of SENsational Consultancy and former ESF special needs teacher. Hi, Faride.
Hi, Chloe. Lovely to be seeing you here in a different format.
So really quickly, before we start the interview, could you quickly introduce yourself, your name, what you do, and anything else you might think would be important for our audience to get to know you a bit better?
My name is Faride Shroff, and I have been a Hong Kong resident for over 30 years now. I was a special needs teacher both at Sarah Rowe School as well as Beacon Hill. Both very different roles because Beacon Hill was in a mainstream school, but in the special needs class. And really enjoyed working there. I worked there for 21 years. And that's the basic I could give you about my introduction as a special needs teacher.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so now we're gonna go into the more SEN teacher focused questions where we kind of want to learn about your work as a former SEN teacher and how you found that experience as a whole and what you concluded from it. So Aiswarya.
Yeah, so the first thing we want to ask is, what led you to become a special needs teacher in the first place? And what was it like to be a former SEN teacher?
Okay, I think what led me to it is the passion that I felt when I was in contact with people who had special needs. I just felt there was a close bonding, and this had started well before I came to Hong Kong, where I used to teach in a special needs school that had over 100 students with a whole range of disabilities. And I used to meet them informally during my lunchtime whilst I was studying because they happened to be in the same college campus. And the time that I spent with them was so precious and so special that it made me feel like I wanted to know more. I wanted to spend more time with them. And I eventually applied for a post in that school. And I got my opportunity to work there with the youngest group in that school.
Wow, amazing.
Wow, that's so cool. So obviously you had a lot of experience working in the SEN department. What do you think is, what method or, teaching method do you think is the most effective when preparing school students with special needs or disabilities for employment in the future?
I think to be a special needs teacher, the first and most important thing is to have understanding and passion, compassion, I would say, for the children and for the individuals that need that help and support, because it's not only the individual, but also their families, because they have a lot of challenges that they experience as well. So that's my first thing. Besides that, of course, the knowledge and understanding of all the range of disabilities. It can be a visible disability or an invisible disability. And people often associate a person in a wheelchair as the only form of disability. So the minute you say, what do you think is a disability? They'll say, oh, a person in a wheelchair. Yeah. But that's not all. Disability is really a widespread scope. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. So when you were teaching at these schools, did you feel that there were sufficient resources to help you when you're teaching these kids?
So in India, there were definitely not enough resources. So we used to create our own teaching aids using recyclable material. So we used to use matchboxes, for example, and we would wrap them up in white paper and mark them and use those as rulers because the kids did not have a lot of those things for themselves, So yeah. Examples like that, we had to be more innovative there. It was very different in Hong Kong, where we had all the teaching resources, and the challenges were very different in Hong Kong. It was more to do with making people understand disabilities in a better way.
Yeah.
Now, one of the highlights of my teaching in India was having Mother Teresa in my classroom.
Wow.
And I think that was such a special time because we were sitting with kids in our lap and singing beautiful songs. And I always remember her telling me that we are only the instruments that God is using to reach and help these children. And those words have never gone from my mind.
Wow.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that's so insightful for Mother Teresa to be there.
Yes.
Amazing.
And so humble. I didn't have
Yeah.
a proper classroom given because we had so many children. We didn't have enough resources for a full classroom. So my classroom was a makeshift classroom at the very entrance of the school, where we had to sort of close the two doors and make that as our classroom. And that's where she was sitting with me on the floor and helping and working with the kids, you know? So that's what I mean about special needs. It's a different journey altogether, and you have to be the right kind of person to be able to embark on that journey.
Chloe, did you want to?
Yeah. And then lastly, we had another question. Aishwarya, you can ask that as well.
Oh, sorry. So speaking of journeys, how did your experience as an SEN teacher shape your desire to support people with disabilities with employment and jobs?
So after working for 21 years at ASF, I used to have a lot of my ex-students visit me after school hours or whenever possible. And one of my students had come to see me in school, and she seemed very different when I saw her. There was something very sad on her face, and she was, I felt, hiding something. And through the conversation, I soon found out that she didn't really feel the value in living anymore, because she had tried every possible way of finding a job, putting in applications, and she felt she was becoming a burden, not only on society, but also on her own parents, because they were also telling her things like, you're useless because you can't find a job. And I started questioning my own beliefs and saying, if I'm here teaching the students to become independent individuals, then I'm not completing that cycle by just being here. I think someone else can do this job now. I need to move to another place where I can change society to be more accepting. And so I actually resigned on that same day and asked them to forgive me for having signed up my next 2-year contract, which I had, but that I just had to leave. At that point, I had not even discussed it with my own family. And so everyone was quite surprised with my decision. But I have never looked back and never regretted that decision, because I feel that the change of moving from my comfort zone out into this totally unknown area has actually made a difference in society.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
that is very rewarding.
Amazing. I completely agree. So moving into our next part of the interview, just on the note of you starting SENsational, we wanted to learn about what exactly does SENsational do. So for the audience that might not know SENsational, please introduce your social enterprise.
So SENsational's mission is to raise awareness in the working space, to make companies realize the importance of equal opportunities for everyone, and to hire based on merit, not just because they have a disability, but because they will be the best people to do that job. And that's the way we want it to be, so that it's a win-win for both the company as well as the individual. Yeah. So we train the corporates on disability awareness so that they are better equipped to make accommodations and to adjust to whatever needs there are for that individual.
Brilliant. So with the talent pool at SENsational, I know you guys do some recruiting and you do some training programs. So what have you found are some of the most crucial skills that candidates need when going into employment straight after graduation?
So we have only started our recruitment arm this very recently, the last month basically, because before that we were just helping candidates to improve their work skills by improving their CV writing, having interview skills. We would have, you know, all kinds of examples which we could give them to enrich them and be ready for an interview, how they should dress, appropriateness of that, preparing them on expectations that a company might have, for example. What would they want from them? How would they expect them to work? Is it important to work endless hours after work, or is it working smart that they should be looking at? Those ideas were all important part of the training we would give to candidates. We would also provide them with mentors. We would give them good leadership mentors so that if they had any issues that they needed to discuss, they could talk to them.
Okay, sounds great. I wanted to actually quickly ask about how important the company culture is when someone with a disability or special needs first goes into the workforce.
The company culture is the most important for it to be successful inclusion. Because very often a company may give somebody a job based on the disability. But I want them to give them a job based on their ability and focus on that. Because every human being has certain strengths and weaknesses. We all have them, you and I included. So why shouldn't they?
Okay. So lastly, we're just about to round off the interview, but before we finish here, what do you think us as high schoolers can do to better support people or students with special needs or disabilities? What part can we play to support this particular community?
I think one of the very important parts is the happiness of the students in schools and having buddies, having friends, having people supporting them. So if that kind of awareness can be spread in every school, that would be a very good starting point. Along with that, there would be also other skills, like a buddy can take a student who has a disability to do other extra activities. For example, artwork, if they are fond of art, then you could do some artistry work, painting, arts and crafts with paper, things like that. You could also teach them some special computer skills, which would be very beneficial when they're actually going in for work. Teaching them how to communicate and talk about their feelings, talk about their needs, being able to express what they actually are going through. Having that kind of a person that they can trust is so important. Yeah.
Definitely.
And there have been cases of bullying or people ridiculing people with disabilities in schools. And I feel those kind of people really need to be dealt with and shown that there are things that they need to learn instead.
I agree, definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was a brilliant interview. Both Aiswarya and I loved hearing about your insights and your breadth of experience within the special needs and disabilities field. I just wanted to thank you on behalf of
Thank you so much.
You have done.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's been an absolute pleasure working with YouMatter. And I think both our companies are working for the same goal to make a better world.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.